and invited him to talk with us today because I thought a lot of what he had to share was particularly relevant, not only in the osteo space, but for anyone in medical device who's looking to make inroads into the hospital space. So, ladies and gentlemen, my newest friend, Dr. David Kay.
Yeah, thank you so much. Again, appreciate the opportunity. I'm not the all-seeing Yoda that knows everything, but I have my perspectives, and it's multiple types of perspectives over the years. So uh, we, our group is a bit different in that we actually own our hospital. So it's an orthopedic specialty hospital where it's orthopedics and plastics only, 60 beds, 12 ORs. And so we're pretty intimately involved in the entire process. Um, it's not typically what you're going to find, which is the employed physician working in a big hospital system. We are more than vested in the decisions that go into acquisition of anything that runs the hospital. Um, and I also come at this from a startup founder, multiple companies, different phases, one from startup to exit. Then I've got three other startups, one not really hospital, kind of a little bit, and the other two will definitely be hospital oriented. So, and one of them we're doing our FDA submission in about a week. So that hopefully we'll get up and going here pretty soon on that side.
Do you have a
So,
social life, David?
yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I get to hang out with my kids and grandkids all the time. So that's pretty
Okay.
much most of the social life. Yeah.
All right. It does sound as though you keep a very busy schedule.
Yeah, yeah. Looking to move out of the clinical side of things here a lot sooner or later too. It's um, just a lot going on.
Your
And
doctorate is in what, please?
pardon me,
Your doctorate is in what?
I'm an MD. You know,
But is it a general practitioner or?
no, I'm an orthopedic surgeon.
Oh, okay. Thank
Okay,
you.
so that's one of the issues we talked about with Tiger is the manpower problem. That's not a problem. Manpower, massive problem. That's looming here real fast, which 25% of docs are over 65, 25% over 55. So we've got 50% either in retirement age or slowdown age. That
Mhm.
leaves 50%. And recent survey of med students, 25% are going to drop out and 60% won't do clinical. So who's going to do all this? Who's there? It's manpower is a real big looming problem, especially with increased demands. So that's part of this. Again, I can come at this from what's it take to get into a hospital. It's a complicated process. I guess I can start off with a question, which is how are people actually getting their products, services, whatever it is that they're doing into the hospital? What is the overall plan that most people are using? How do they do it?
Let me pick on a few folks in the group. Well, Goldie's raised her hand. Go ahead.
Um, yeah, thank you, Dr. K. I worked on facet joints or general ultrasound or MR guided ablation therapies. And the way company approached it was to really identify a number of diagnostics when people start to go see doctor, general practitioner, and to surgeon, and then identifying the journey of that patient through the CPT codes and identifying which hospitals and clinics will actually use that service, what volume do they have. So that's how we approached it. But it was a tedious task, like really tedious task. Breaking into their purchasing cycle, like identifying was the one step, took a very long time, and then really targeting the purchasing cycle for each type of the organization was a very long process.
So it sounds like you're creating a heat map of locations then, correct?
Yeah, you're identifying the pain scores and what treatment regime they will go for, and then you are ablating that. So for facet particularly, you are identifying where you will ablate to denerve the pain sensations. That's
Okay.
how the treatment was working.
So you're going institutional based. So you're looking at hospitals again, is what you're looking
Yes.
at?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And why did you go that route? What was it that you said this is going to be the best way to go?
Depends on the alternative treatments. Many people stay on painkillers for a very long time, so we did not want it to target that population. So we were looking at people who are ready for interventions, some sort of an intervention. So we narrowed down interventional radiology suites where they actually have a non-invasive methods. So that's how it was targeted.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? How do you decide where you're going to go, and what your process is going to be? Yeah, I'm just curious, just like to understand where people are doing things and how they're doing it. Clearly there's different types of, again, are you talking about a CapEx issue? Are you talking about disposables? Are you talking about implants, services? There's lots of different things that people are doing. I know this is a medical device group, but oftentimes there's a lot of things attached to that device.
Shabir, I was going to call on you anyhow. Good to see you.
Nice to see you, Joe. We're in CapEx, capital equipment. So the company I'm with has traditionally used third-party service providers and distributors. There's a network of those. So we're in the mammography space. And they actually sell and service equipment from all the major manufacturers. And that's kind of like the low-hanging fruit for us. So that's the first go-to-market, sell to hospital strategy.
And when you sell to the hospital, what has the decision-making process been for you?
So we haven't.
How many levels do you have to go through?
We haven't started selling. Our product is under development right now, but the company has in the past, with previous products, sold to the hospitals, and it's a long process. It's typically in the breast imaging mammography space, it's anywhere from a 5 to 10 year cycle, and you have to get it kind of set into the budget process and things like that. Things are changing a little bit with the ambulatory clinics that are now beginning to do, or not beginning, are now taking on most of the imaging. Things like the RadNets of the world. They do most of the, hospitals kind of outsource this. So those are a little bit faster.
So one of the phrases that I picked up, and I don't think it's his original, but from Anthony Viscogliosi, it's called Death Valley. Yeah. How do you survive Death Valley? Just waiting.
That's a tough one. Bridge finance, whatever. I mean, whatever you have to do. Sometimes also. So this situation is in the United States. Overseas, that is a lot different, especially in the Far East, India, Middle East. There we can sell faster.
Okay. All right. Again, I just kind of want to get a sense. I've lived in the device world, and that's classically done by finding your champion surgeon. And that champion surgeon then has to go to the VAC committee. And then from the VAC committee, you get some sort of an answer, kind of maybe if you're lucky, 3 months, maybe. Could be 9 months, could be a year. And then you're told, oh, we're a single vendor, system. We can't use you, after waiting for a year. Then they disclose that part to you. So it's a different process, I think, for the devices versus CapEx. So is anybody doing devices? Again, I'm just curious to understand your process, just what it is you're doing.
So if I may, that was actually a key question I had for you today, which is, this whole business of a single vendor, this idea of bundling. You know, you go to a hospital and they are either a GE house or a Siemens house, and then that's it. You're done. If you're somebody else, so that's one thing you have to find out beforehand. But even at that, again, going to these ambulatory centers, things are changing a little bit there. But this, since everything is networked, everything is into that EHR system, the hospital. It's very hard for them to pick an MRI machine from one vendor and an ultrasound machine from another. It's easy for them to bundle the whole thing, and it makes sense. So that's probably from their side, that's the issue.
So how do you
and how do you deal with that? How do you that was my question to you.
We don't. We want it easy, and we want it what's going to create the less turmoil, less cost for us. Sometimes I think turmoil wins out over cost frequently, by the way. How much training do we have to do? How much this do we have to do? How much new integration do we have to do? I'll give you an example. This is actually pretty good. So we built a new hospital in Crystal Clinic. You can find it online. A couple years ago, about 2.5 years ago, and decision was autoclaves. Well, we're in Northeast Ohio, and guess what company is really close in Northeast Ohio? Steris. So it's like, okay, we're going to go with Steris. We had 3 of these industrial autoclaves and a couple of little ones that were designed just more for small. Hey, I got to get something flashed up and sterilized quickly, but 3 industrial ones, and we're having 2 of them down. We have to cancel surgeries because we can't autoclave everything we need to autoclave. And, we went with Steris. Well, it's like, okay, this is not good. So again, turmoil that subsequently leads into costs. So, sometimes that may be the opportunity. If you can have a very large company that takes you for granted, a very large company that really doesn't provide very good service, that's that opportunity to get in. It's finding out, what is your current state? Are you really happy with what you're getting from them or not happy with them? How are they getting you? Again, the really large companies will go in and it sounds really good, and then the service contracts kill you. What's your service contract? How are you addressing the servicing? Medtronic gave us, now our second Mazer. Oh, we're going to give that to you. No, you're not really not. We know that. Yeah, we have to pay for the software upgrades. And of course, they capture you in their ecosystem for spine is what they're doing. That's the strategy. But that's okay because our spine surgeons really like Medtronic spine. It's going to be very difficult for anybody else to come in once you have that. So a lot of the information as far as what each of the hospitals is doing ahead of time, doing a lot of the homework is going to be very important, because I think one of the ways I phrase this is there are a few yeses on new product adoption and a lot of no's. And there's no's that you can't even think about. Maybe it's somebody in IT goes, we can't reprogram our stuff to take that on. Oh, and maybe it's somebody in materials. Oh, we got to add more stuff into what we're doing and the scanning system and this and that. How do we track inventory? And it's somebody way down in the basement somewhere who just said no. Meanwhile, everything else looks pretty good. So it's a matter of really thinking every single step in the process, and then acid testing that by going to a few different types of places, whether it's a big system, whether it's an outpatient facility, and really understanding what they're doing. Now, there is an opportunity, and I think Tigers brings this up all the time, big switch from hospitals to ASCs. So there are a lot of ASCs being built now. There's a lot of transition into ASCs right now. When you get in the ground floor and when you become the norm, people don't like to change. I mean, think about all of our habits. We all have really bad habits, right? We know they're bad habits, but they're habits of why I'm not going to change it. And that's no different in trying to break into a different system. Does that make sense to everybody as far as things to think about? I mean, it's a lot of work.
I mean, even beyond this industry, just show of hands, who here would like something else to do? Because I have a project for you. It's like, I have a lot going on. Michelle, you have your hand raised.
Yes, so I just, because Dr. K was, want to try to find out how the devices is kind of, what's the pathway. So the device I work on is a smaller device, is compression, is for the DVT, pre-op, post-op to prevent the blood clot, or if after surgery they happen to develop lymphedema, then we have the lymphedema compression. And those product has been sold in Australia, all 7 territories, and about 4 countries in the EU. And we also develop some clients in the UK right now. However, in the US, I believe Cano Health, also known as Kendall Health Covidien, their SCD is the most surgeon will use. And also some people use Agile AC 600 or 900. And our system are 510K clear, but right now it's not selling in the US, and we try to bring it in. And I think what you just tell us is really valuable to us, because the service contract with the big GPO in the hospital space probably won't be a place that we should pursue, because just Nick and I, 2 people, probably not gonna be able to do all that, because Cano Health probably will just kind of squash us. So maybe we should go a different route to find a smaller group of hospitals or surgeons like you have mentioned. I think that probably be something Nick and I should think about.
Yeah, again, you've got to find the pain point for change. Change happens more often because of pain, not because of pleasure, right? Gee, it's painful,
Yes.
so I think I need to make a change. So what is the pain point that creates the change? And in healthcare, you need to do a few different things in order to have a possibility of success. One is you need to show improved outcomes. Number 2, reduce cost of care. And I'm using that phrase purposely, cost of care. Real important. And third, you need to make it somewhat seamless for people. Very, very seamless. Don't learn anything new. I used a little analogy with Tiger talking about roundabouts. Roundabouts improve safety, improve traffic flow. You didn't have to learn anything new. Piece of cake, right? So adoption has been pretty easy. If you have to learn something new, it's hard. It's just hard. And you've got to think about who has to learn something new. Are your barcodes in a different location? Adopt the Aldi process. They put barcodes all over the place because you can scan it really fast. Okay. So, I mean, you get used to where the barcode is when you're scanning things in, where the OR nurse or the floor nurse is looking to scan in for the inventory control. Are they hunting around for it because it's put in just a different location? I mean, little simple things like that can be an impediment for adoption. So you've got to really consider all of the potential no's, but you've got to be able to show improved outcomes. Or if you're not showing improved outcomes, you better be a lot less expensive in total costs. How are you affecting the process of care in the total cost of care?
You have your hand raised. Dr. Stevens, yes, you. And you're on mute.
You woke me up there. Well, Dr. K, your words are very profound in the sense of developing products that have outcomes that meet exactly what you said, improve patient outcomes and lowering cost. So when companies are designing products, they need to think of that. And my question is, a lot of the companies that I've worked with have the strategy of developing a product that does just that, improves outcomes and will reduce costs for the hospital. Their concept is that we will engage a champion out there. In your case, it would be the leader of the orthopedic surgery world, a physician or somebody like that, and then work with them and get them to be the clinical evaluator and have outcomes that prove what you said, and then approach the hospitals. How important is a physician champion for the technology as far as adoption by the physicians that you work with in yourself?
How do you evaluate for that person? I'm curious because I've got maybe some insight that you haven't heard before. How do you evaluate that person?
Well, I'm sure you have insight that I don't have. You're
Mhm.
a physician, and that's why I'm listening to you.
Right,
One of the
but how
ways-
would you evaluate?
Well, one of the
How would you
ways,
choose somebody?
people who are leaders of associations, people who published a lot, people who have a reputation for
Following.
being a really good physician who you can trust when they tell you something's great. The companies, finding that person is not easy, obviously.
Okay, so that's typically you've got to go for every institution, you've got to find that person. And in most, you're not going to find that person that you're describing. Also, what's in it for them? Are they doing it because it's going to get them up on the podium more? Are they doing it because they want royalties, even though they had nothing to do with the design? Are they doing it because they want a bunch of consulting agreements and want to travel all over the place? Why are they doing it? Are they doing it because they really believe in the product? Or are they doing it because they're mercenary and they're getting paid? And yes, I know both. What's it in their institution? What do people think about them? You know, this guy's done this to us a whole bunch. He's brought these things in. We spent a fortune. We lost money on that last 3 things that they championed. We're not doing any more, and I don't care who the guy is. That guy's a jerk. There's no way we're going to use it because that guy's a jerk. What do you know about him personally? What do you know about their reputation in their institution? How successful have they been? What are they doing? And you can't do what I just did, which is ask those sorts of questions, but you can find that information out, right, Tiger? You're a recruiter. You can find those things out about people. And I mean, there's not much hidden anymore. So how I was just curious, how do you go about finding that particular person? If you're going to a tertiary care hospital versus a little community place, totally different, completely different. Finances are different. Decision making is very different. You might need that person. And then how are you going to prep them? What are you going to say to them when they go and do the presentation? Just remember what's most important. What's number 1 through 10? Price, right? What's it cost? So all this other stuff is nice, but at the end of the day, what's it cost? And then you have to have, these crazy other discussions. So how do you prep them to go in front of a VAC committee? They're going to, and then how much time are they going to charge you for that time? Some will, trust me. I've been there. I've heard
David,
it.
I want to ask you, I mean, you're raising very valid points, of course, but you're not suggesting don't look for them.
No, I didn't do that at all. I said, but do your diligence. Don't make this assumption that just because somebody is up on the podium all the time, that they are well respected in their own place. They may not even be that well respected in other places. Because they're known for why they do things, because they got paid to say it, and people don't respect them at all. So yes, they might publish a lot, but they may not have a lot of respect, believe it or not.
Yeah, I agree with David. There's not a correlation between amount of publications and content of the character or how good a surgeon they are. There's not really any correlation.
I'm just saying, due diligence. Don't be lured in by the neon signs that surround certain people. Just be really, really careful and understand them, because they're your lifeline to that institution. They're your lifeline to get your product going. You really need to know them. And Tiger, you can correct me or not, but what I've just said is probably not something that's been spoken about before.
Yeah, it's
Not
a little
publicly.
taboo. a little taboo.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. I think you want to talk to me to find these things out.
Ms. McKeel, I'm intimidated by your first name. I don't know how to pronounce it, so would you start there?
No worries. Thank you for providing me.
And speak louder, I'm having a hard time.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, just a little closer to the mic, but yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So thank you for providing me opportunity to come here and talk. Firstly, I'm very intrigued with the discussion of orthopedics. So I'm building a company myself, Mobility Z Health, and where we are focused on how we can make life better for orthopedic surgeons. And considering as a patient myself, I faced delay in care because my appointment was 5 months away. And when I researched more, I realized that the problem is different on the physician side, because there is no screening of the patients, whether they are orthopedic surgical patients or non-surgical patients, because everybody gets an appointment once they are referred from GP, or once most of them, we found out like 70% of them do not come from the GP side, and they directly take an appointment with the surgeon here in Houston. So we started building a software wherein the software, which is an AI-enabled software, which helps orthopedic surgeons to manage their patients in a critical way in terms of like screening the patients, whether they are surgical or not, remotely, virtually, without the intervention of the surgeon. We have like 5 orthopedic surgeons on board in our team, and a PA or maybe a nurse could be affiliated who can do this particular analysis. So coming back to this discussion, we are in a goal to provide help for orthopedic surgeons to manage the patients better in specific area, which is musculoskeletal injuries. And from the record, 124 million people get musculoskeletal injuries. And as Dr. K just mentioned, that on the physician side, there is so much backlog, as well as there is so many physicians who are currently not adhering, like they are currently burned out, and we are trying to help in that area. But coming back to the crowd here, I love this discussion, and anybody who is even remotely intrigued with what we are doing, I would love to talk and gain more insights. As we are in the early stages, I'm currently looking for more advisors like yourself and bringing more people in the team to solve this issue, where we can help orthopedic surgeons at the same time help patients to get care early.
As a strategist, I'd love to include you maybe in January. Sometimes we use these Fridays and talk with an entrepreneur like yourself, and kind of you present your concept, and from all different functional angles, we ask you questions and challenge you. Because what I just heard sounds very difficult from how will you monetize that and change the behavior of people. Having said that, my real question for you is, how do you pronounce your first name?
Sucheshna.
Sucheshna?
Yes.
Well, close enough. Okay, well, Sucheshna, thank you for coming on camera today, and let's talk after this. Maybe we'll include you as a featured guest in January. David, do you have anything, your reaction to, she has a new AI-enabled bit of software. I'm thinking it's software as a service that would facilitate your life, the orthopedic surgeon. What's your initial reaction to that?
Yeah, so I actually, I've seen patients with fresh fractures that were referred to. Again, there's a really large institution in Cleveland, close by. You all know where that is. And they were told it was going to be 2 or 3 months before they could get in with a fresh fracture. And I saw them the next day, which is why they came in. So you have to think about the institution. Are you in a huge institution that uses a call center to do the screening? Okay, that's a real problem. Are you and that's the vast majority anymore, or are you in a smaller setting? So in my group, there's 55, and with all of us, we have preferences. And some of my preferences, if somebody has a known fresh fracture from an ER, I want to see them the next day I'm in office, period. It's really simple. If somebody is a post-op patient and they're not sure what's going on, I will see them the next day I'm in office, or PA will see them on an alternate day immediately. I do not want people sitting around. If or if you're a diabetic patient and you're just not sure something's going on, you're going to be seen basically immediately. But that's me. That's not everybody. I just don't want those people sitting. I would rather do a quick screen and say everything's good. Oh, quick screen, we need to go to surgery right away. I don't want that person waiting a long time. But how do you do that? Remember, EHRs are not, I mean, that's a whole separate topic, but EHRs are clearly the cause of most of the burnout, as well as just who makes the decisions when patients are seen, how many patients you see during a day. And this is the access issue that I was talking about. So it's trying to solve that and prioritize it is going to be pretty darn important, because there are people who are just going to go without care, who needed more acute care. But you've got to look at what the institution is, what are the demands of the institution, how does that integrate? Because clearly, we want to see people who need to be seen when they need to be seen. And it's hard for patients always to know too. One of the things that we have in our group that I think is actually quite good is we have urgent care centers, orthopedic urgent care centers, and they're pretty popular. So across the country, so if you're seeing an urgent care center and if you have a fracture, guess what? You have an appointment made to see one of us like as soon as possible, directly in, not going through the primary care docs because they're bogged down and they can't see you right away. Plus you get x-rays that are just not clear when people need to be seen. So we get people send in, I had one today, foreign body. I went, it was something stuck in your skin. That was not a deep foreign body. That was skin. But primary care doc read the report and said, oh, got to be seen right away. So it is a very complicated problem because, again, you have institutional issues, you have patient issues, you have physician issues, and they are not aligned. That's the problem.
Dr. Lin to ask this question, and then let's hold off on questions just a little bit and let David expound on some of the things he was planning to share with us today. My anesthesiologist friend, Dr. Lin.
Thank you, Joe. I just echo what Dr. K said, and that is finding the right physician key opinion leader truly is a art and very challenging. I trained at a world-class institution, and the chairman of urology wrote the Bible of urology. It was thicker than this, and people from all over the world, not just all over the country, come to have him operate on them. And yet all the anesthesiology residents, when they're assigned to him, groan because they know they're going to have a rough day with excessive bleeding and all kinds of complications. But nobody outside the OR know that. And the anesthesiologist is that rare specialist who gets to see both sides of the patient care, from the medical to the surgical side. When they go see a patient pre-op, they see how well the cardiologist, the pulmonologist, and so on have prepped the patient and ready the patient for surgery. And in the OR, they get to see whether the surgeon is calm and meticulous, or they throw instruments on the floor and screams at the nurses. So that's a picture nobody else has a complete picture of, typically. And the other points that he raised about, like he said, some of them are just interested in the fees that they may get. Others are simply way too busy. So even though they are good and they meet all the wonderful criteria, you just can't persuade them to be involved. It is very, very challenging.
Thank you.
So I have one comment on anesthesia. One of the best things, because medical device group, right? So one of the best things that I've seen is that new laryngoscope that has the little camera on it.
Yes.
That is fantastic. What a great device. If you want to use a model for a device that should just take off, that's it. I mean, I think that one's pretty easy to prove efficacy on. And I mean, I'd like to hear your opinion, but when I looked at that, because my first rotation and internship was an anesthesia rotation. And so, I had to do a lot of intubations and just manage a lot of people during, that was what I did as an intern, right? First rotation. So when I saw that, I said, oh, that looks great. So I like your opinion. How we about switching that around? What do you think of that device, adoption of that device, fulfilling a need?
Well, on the surface, I agree with you. That is a no-brainer. It's obviously better, makes it easier. And yet a large study published in Anesthesiology News showed that it does not improve the chance of successful intubation because many physicians become distracted by the Alice in Wonderland things that they get to see as they go in, and they get sidetracked and lose that precious time in seconds as the patient's oxygenation goes down. That's not what I expected, probably not what you expected, and yet that's the finding. So the conclusion is that it added no value.
Wow. Yeah.
Go figure.
Yeah. Because I'm thinking CRNAs. You've got somebody, not an anesthesiologist, CRNA, who are doing the most of the intubation, so especially in ASCs, providing that tool for them. So I don't know if that included anesthesia, CRNAs, locations. I would be curious because, if you're in an ASC, you're a little bit on an island, remote island. So improvements there, I thought, would be really important. So that's a great comment.
I would agree with you. I would agree with you.
Thank you, Eddie.
Again, data.
Yes, everybody is asking for data. And in order to get objective data, it costs a lot of money, a lot of delays, and that's where the valley of death to cross it becomes so challengingly long that many startups don't make it. It's a sad situation.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to go back on what I said in terms of just having David expound, because I do want to talk. I think, Eddie, you're a great example of what you just described. I've known you now for more than a decade, and you've been working on bringing your innovation to market all that time. I know that there have been periods where money was extraordinarily tight. So arguably, you've experienced this valley of death. And if we're honest with the group, we don't know that you'll come out of the valley of death. We assume, we hope, we know that you're making great progress, but there's still risk there. So, what if David were on your advisory committee, what would you hope that from his successes you could glean, or just kind of a way to get over that line?
Well,
why don't you just take a moment and tell him what you're developing?
Until COVID hit, I was working on an advanced wound care system, and it was truly the most advanced system in the world. It's the only one that would deliver intermittent negative pressure wound therapy, alternating with topical pressurized oxygen, along with irrigation, antibiotics, analgesics, anti-inflammatories, and so on. Basically, it would cycle all kinds of therapeutics and create an idealized microenvironment over the wound. And it has pressure sensing from both the upstream and the downstream of the wound interface, which nobody else does.
Then
so
COVID
it is
hit,
true.
and what happened?
Yeah.
Then COVID hit, and what happened to your
Then COVID hit. So all my supply chain dried up. I had no choice but to halt my development. And as an anesthesiologist, I saw patients all, mostly, not all, very high percentage, dying on the ventilator. And I knew ventilator was not the best way to go. So I set out to create a super oxygenating mask system that will preferentially deliver oxygen into the alveolar space while the patient breathes spontaneously and fill the anatomical dead space, which doesn't participate in oxygen exchange with ambient air. And I had a heck of a time getting through FDA. They had intensivists, family physicians, other people on the committee. They don't even know what's the category it should be in. They were concerned about, would there be humidity buildup in the mask? Of course it won't, because with every cycle of fresh air, and it doesn't even need humidification, all the humidity will be washed out. Will the patient be comfortable? Look, air hunger is by far the greater hunger. They will just micro focus on little things that didn't matter. But anyway, after a delay of 1.5 years, I finally said, hey, just go ahead and, you know, market it as a non-rebreathing mask, class 1. So today it has been shown to achieve absolutely eye-opening, astounding results. But hospitals and physicians look at it and they don't believe a device like that could deliver those kind of results. Their bias against it is so strong that they wouldn't even try, even though at well-known institution, it was proven to outperform high-flow nasal cannula. So there are obstacles all over the place. And I am getting ready to do a large trial and hopefully reapply to FDA for a de novo pathway, because it is truly groundbreaking in terms of the results that it.
Your investors must be completely exhausted. So where would you go for funding for this large study?
I've cashed out my IRAs and all that.
This is not a recommended path. Dilute all personal savings and retirement savings.
I do have a barrel ready that I can get into. No, I'm kidding. I actually do have investment bankers interested, but they are more. I don't want to lose control of my company too early. We are near the end of the valley of death, I would say. And my team, I'm blessed to have a team that voluntarily either took no salary or cut the salary in half and signed commitment to buy equity in the company by selling the house. I mean, that's faith in a company, I think. I'm very blessed to have that.
David, a lot there.
Yeah, it's not an easy path. And, you know, again, physician to physician, it's number one purpose is trying to help people. I mean, that's number one. It's trying to improve care. That's really at the forefront. And frankly, it should be at the forefront of everything that's being done. Because if you're not improving care, why are you doing this? That's what
gets me up every morning and keep going.
Gee, you know, this isn't that hard, but it's hard. It really is. Again, it's the adoption issues. It's proving that it's there. I feel the pain with FDA. We had somebody who was an OB-GYN. I'm like, really? Doing orthopedic device and you're an OB-GYN? That makes no sense at all. I mean, that was like my last peer-to-peer was with an OB-GYN. I'm like, peer-to-peer OB-GYN? That makes no sense. Okay. But you know, it's a bit of a sidetrack, but that's the reality. You know, we talk impediments. That's really what this talk is about. What are the different impediments? And these are things that, you know, most people are going to go, what? Why would that person be there? But they're there. I mean, they're there, and you have to sort your ways around it. So, you know, getting the study done is going to be key. Sometimes it may be helpful even going OUS to look at some of the studies. Just got to make sure that the study is being done so they can be approved by the FDA. Clearly, you know, this market is the market to be in, the US market still. And I said this when I spoke with Tiger, we are in a tipping point right now. It's here and things cannot continue. Things have got to get shifted over and people are going to fight like crazy to stay in their position and without having a change in the tipping point and change in what they're doing. They're just going to fight like crazy. They will push you out for the silliest, dumbest reasons that they're going to come up with, but they control the contracting. And that's really the big thing, which is, what is the commercialization process? What is the sell process? How do you sell into this? Your number one is current practice. Doesn't make a difference how good or bad it is. It's current practice. Why? Again, we don't change. We just don't like to change. And healthcare is incredibly conservative. Once you're entrenched, it's easy. But after that, it's like, wow, breaking that stranglehold is hard. It's really hard.
So true.
I don't have any magic for what you're talking about. One of the things might be looking at an incubator. I will also give you a bit of advice. You are going to lose control sooner or later if you want to be successful. 100% of zero is zero. 10% of something really
That's
big
very
is
true
10%
too.
of something big. So it's how do you move into that position of still being able to guide things? What I've done, my strategy is, if you look at my role with 2 of the startups I have, I'm chief medical officer. I'm not CEO, I'm chief medical officer. So I'm guiding the clinical side of things. I still have very strong, heavy input on the commercialization side, but I function as chief medical officer, not CEO. And, I give up some of the terrible stuff that you got to do as doing everything to be able to move the ship forward. So that's kind of more of a position, or it could be the innovator, it could be the technical person. Technical people always, can't always move into the CEO, run the whole thing. Stay in your lane and pull all the chariots forward, because you need chariots, by the way, because you got to break through a lot of barriers.
Very true.
Again?
Thanks.
Michelle?
Yes, thank you, Dr. K, for all the valuable information for us. But I want to say something to Dr. Lin, if that's okay. So I work with a team of engineers, and they are very knowledgeable on the negative pressure wound care. So if you need anything, because the owner of the manufacturer I work with, he is very patient. He is passionate about patient care, even though he's on the manufacturer side. That's why he even sold some of his key components to Agile Huntley. So because Agile Huntley wouldn't be able to make the key components, and then he even willing to do that, because I asked him, I said, why you do that? He said, at the end of the day, what we're doing is patient care, provide better care for the patients, make them as comfortable as possible. So if you need any information and or any help, I think I can somehow connect you to the owner, and just let me know.
Thank you, Michelle. I will reach out to you.
Thank you, Dr. Lin.
Yeah, and again, networking, doing this sort of thing, because you never know who you're going to bump into. Go, oh, but again, you may have to relinquish some of the control side of things, and that may just be what you need to get rid of that anchor that's keeping you still. Any other specific questions as far as, again, that process of getting into a hospital? Remember, getting in is only step one.
Yeah.
Your next step is,
Having them actually adopted.
persistent cells. Yeah, becoming the routine. I remember back in the OrthoHelix days, the salespeople said, oh, we just got into this hospital. I said, don't tell me about the onesie twosies. Tell me about the changed habit, guys. I want to know, what did it take to change the habit? What did it take to flip the switch so that you're the choice, not just the convenience? You're not just there for the 1 or the 2 cases. How did you do that? How did you flip the switch? So step 1, you got to get in. Trust, big step. But next one is, how do you become the habit? And I'm curious to hear what people's strategies are to become the habit, not just one.
I have to laugh before I give the mic to Bambot. I was wondering why Mark was going like this and waving to everyone. And it occurs to me when his camera went entirely dark that he's in a light sensitive room. And apparently the room has decided that Mark doesn't exist. So it's good that you're still with us, Mark, personally, from me to you. It's good to.
Yeah, it's absolutely frustrating, and I'm to the point where I don't even notice it. I just react automatically. So
I think you
sorry
need
if
a
I
device,
distracted.
some kind of device. Bambot, what have you got?
So I had a question for Dr. K. Thank you again for all of that wonderful insight. What is the big difference, if there are, I mean, some key differences between the buying habits, how they make their purchases between ASCs and the hospitals, and that one should know of?
Yeah, so it's really pretty simple. A hospital is going to be owned by an entity, and the ASC is going to be owned by the physicians. So you have different. It's easier to appeal to the emotions of physicians, and I don't think the people in buying in hospitals have emotions. They're just looking at a number in a spreadsheet. That's it.
Are the ASCs getting to where the hospitals are?
Again, if you're going to appeal to a physician, you're asking them to write the check, and they're going to want to see the return. Now, some will be more about the patient care and less about the return on the investment. Some are going to be a lot worse than the hospitals as far as return on investment. They're going to want to see just crazy, impossible numbers. And if you don't make it, they will be ruthless and incredibly emotional about their decision and letting you know that you didn't make their promised return. Meanwhile, they didn't support it properly either. So it can be, the emotion appealing to people making more emotional decisions carries both upside and downside, and you've got to just be careful on the downside. So I think that's a big difference. Remember, an HOPD, hospital outpatient facility, is still owned by the hospital. It may not be a joint venture with physicians, but ASCs are physician owned.
Thank you.
I've always said that there's a reason I support medical device entrepreneurs, and I'm not one myself, because I don't have the stomach for it. I just can't absorb this kind of risk and stress and thinking of every last thing that any human with a thought could possibly derail. And yet here you are, David, and you've been successful. It doesn't hurt that you're an orthopedic surgeon on the side. But what just seems like a question, the answer is going to be perseverance, but what's the characteristic that you need to have the kinds of successes that you have?
Well, persistence, that's one. Yes, I do sleep. Everybody goes, "Do you sleep?" I said, "Yeah, I sleep." It's really, it goes back to, what's the mission of a physician, which is basically to make people better, right? That's the mission. And I see things that I go, that's not that going to be that difficult of a fix. Of course, they're always really difficult. This atraumatic skin closure, again, I don't want to just call it an adhesive, but that started in 2011 is when I started on that one. And that was developing a brand new material, and that was hard. And yeah, the initial polymer chemist, he was so happy because he had 20 grams of it. I go, yeah, but I need like 5 kilos of this stuff, to get enough that we can at least start commercialization. So it's a very complex process, but it's a matter of going, okay, are people going to be better at the end of the day? Tiger knows full well, we're still having issues on our fundraiser and our little navigation system, which is so different from anything else that's out there. But it's going to address the manpower problems. It's going to address consistency. It's going to address all kinds of really good things. And it's one of those, I've shown it to a number of physicians, and every single one goes, I could use this. And I'm talking about amazingly skilled. One is actually a savant in the operating room. He's going, I could use this. And I was like, wow, okay, that's great. You know, to get that sort of recognition for what we're working on. But it's hard because we're doing things that nobody's ever done before. You know, that's part of it. It's the challenge of nobody's ever done this before. And that's really difficult. And then, but I think a lot of it has to do with, I think about the commercialization side at the beginning, at the conception. And trust me, I throw away, I wastebasket more ideas than you can imagine. I just throw away going, I don't know how to commercialize that. There's too many impediments. Oh my God, the FDA, I don't have enough time left in my life to deal with the FDA for this. Even though it might be absolutely phenomenal on every other checkbox, you know, what are the impediments? I really try to think very hard about the impediments before jumping on. And I've learned to double to triple the time that I initially think, you know, the optimistic inventor, to actually get the product to market. And I also surround myself with people. I don't try to do this on my own. You know, I think that's probably one of the big take homes. I don't try to do this. I'm not in for the total glory, you know.
Well, that's you hit on something that is kind of the foundation of the group with whom you're speaking. I think of these folks as my family, and we look out for one another. And everyone brings a different expertise. So we're looking at the same problem from a lot of different angles. I don't know if business ever brings you to California, but if it does, I'm in Seattle, but come April 30, May 1st and 2nd is our annual meeting where we come together and get in the same room for a change. You'd be more than welcome. In fact, I'd love to
thank you.
Include you. This is our last broadcast for 2023. We will start on January 5th with fan favorite Rob Packard, who will talk about something regulatory that's important that everyone needs to know. If any of you, for tax reasons, want to jam an expense in 2023 versus 2024, let me know. If you want to pay for 10x now versus later, if that's helpful for you, we can do that. And thank you, Hyman, for your holiday sweater. It's not too late to put that on for us. Happy holidays, whatever you celebrate. Happy New Year, and thank you once again for being part of our little group.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you.